They shot the ball exceptionally well, so give them credit there. I think some of the struggles that took place in the first quarter were things that we really tried to cover today at shoot around. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't do a good enough job of creating maybe enough clarity for them on those situations. And I thought we had some blown coverages, and we got hurt on some slip outs. It was stuff that we knew that they were going to do. We kind of talked about it, worked on a little bit, but I obviously did not do a good enough job creating enough clarity there for them. So that's on me. I thought we got some of it corrected better in the second half. I think it's things we're going to need going forward, and we got to be better at that. But that was, I thought, some of the issues. The other issues where we turned the ball over too much, they got way out in transition, on us. I thought that really hurt us. I think the other part of it is, we shot it fairly decent. I think we could have got a few more threes up. But I also felt like in the, in different opportunities where I thought we did play pretty good defense, they really knocked down some shots. There was some, and way too many that were wide open, and there were some that were contested. I think when a team finds a rhythm like that, once some easy ones go in, a lot of times teams can make hard ones.
What specifically wasn't made clear in terms of the coverages and breakdowns?
Well, I mean, what we were doing, I thought we did a better job in the second half, but we were not executing it like we needed to execute it. And that's not on them. That's on me, because I'm the one that's, obviously covering that stuff and shoot arounds and doing that. So a lot of it was just a pick and roll situation, small on small. Some of the roles there, I think that our communication wasn't great. We need to be better in the communication, but I think the technique and the way we went about doing it was not good enough. And I don't blame them at all. I blame myself for not doing a good enough job, in my opinion, creating clarity, because there was not clarity out there in terms of the communication part of what we were doing. And I think as the game went on, we got better at it. But I thought early it kind of got them into a rhythm, which allowed them. They got a couple open ones, couple, things at the rim. And then, the other part of it was they then started making tough shots. Now, was the whole first half all that? No. But, looking at the things that we tried to do in the game, I've got to look at, areas that I can do a better job helping him in those situations. And we have, opportunities and shoot around to cover this stuff. It wasn't like we didn't cover it. We covered it, but I didn't in my opinion, do a good enough job covering it where there was enough clarity or detail for them. I thought I did, but I didn't, and it was clear by watching the game.
It was the second game in a row where it seemed like you guys were a couple steps slow against a team that's very quick on the perimeter. Can that be explained by?
Well, I think some of it, was what I just discussed. That was part of it. I think the other part of it is we've had a hard time, even going back to, Boston. I think maybe Darnell asked about the ball containment. We have a hard time containing the ball, just guarding the ball in general. And I thought Rozier, I thought LaMelo Ball, Bridges, when they start putting it down and, going at you, we have a hard time. And sometimes we get caught in rotations when we really don't need to be in caught in rotations. I think with the way NBA offenses are right now, you have to be able to effectively switch. And when we do effectively switch and we can kind of shrink the floor and crowd the floor, I think that gives us the best opportunity to contain the ball. But, tonight, I just thought in a lot of situations, we just got taken off the dribble, and we're going to have to be able to contain the ball better than we did.
Why did you decide to start Kobe tonight?
Well, one of the things I felt like is Io, I think is, I give him a lot of credit because I personally have put a lot on his plate in terms of what I've asked him to do, and he's done a great job. But it's a lot guarding who he's guarding, and certainly the caliber teams that we've played here of late, and also, trying to run our team. One of the things I wanted to do was take a look at putting Zach at the point, just to kind of help us get, the ball moving early, just because I think when he's coming down the floor with the ball and he's in action with DeMar or Vooch, whoever it may be, it draws two and it allows us to kind of get going. And I think with the way Io is being guarded right now, we've got to help him get better at this. But the way he was being guarded early in the year to where he's being guarded now, we're trying to help give him some solutions. But I think that's where, and I've always said this, the more and more film that's out there on you, the more and more you have to continually adjust and adapt. So, I think for us having Zach back there maybe gave us, I didn't mind. I thought, listen, I thought the turnovers and I thought we got stagnant a few times, but I didn't think like in the first half we generated 2 poor shots. We shot a pretty good percentage from the field. I thought the turnovers hurt us because I think it led out to a lot of runouts for them. And we also got hurt in transition, and we got certainly hurt with some seals by their bigs at the basket.
I know you're not a guy that yells and comes in here and screams after a loss.
After you guys?
No, at anyone, at us, at the fans, at the team, whatever the case is.
Well, I don't know about the team.
Well, I mean, that's kind of part of it. Like, you come in here and the first thing you say is like, you're blaming yourself after that was a really bad first half. Like, from the outsiders, like the players didn't get it done either. Like, what are we to make of you coming in here and being like, that was on me, kind of? Like, what do we read into that?
Well, I don't understand what you mean. What you read into? It's exactly what I said. I don't know what are you trying to read into?
I mean, what did you think of the player's performance then when you come in and the first thing you say kind of is like, that's on me?
Yeah, I mean, am I saying the whole game is on me? No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, I think that, and I've talked to you guys a lot about, you have to, I think, be truthful in terms of what you're saying. And what I'm saying is this is my truth. Okay. I'm not saying that like every single time I say something that I feel is true. I'm telling you what my truth is. And sitting over there and watching the game and some of the broken floor situations on coverages, what we covered, we did not do well enough. I feel like that was my responsibility. I just feel that. Now, was there other breakdowns? Yeah, but I'm going to always look at myself first. That's the first thing I'm going to do before I ever look at a player. I'm going to look at what I could do better and how I can help more. Were there some situations we didn't block out? There was a couple of situations with 2 guys in actions that clearly it was no doubt, on our guys, but there was other things that were me. So I'm not going to sit there and talk about all what the players could have done better. I need to talk about what I need to do better. And I thought that some of the blown coverages allowed them to get into a rhythm, allowed them to get into a flow. And I'll go back and watch the tape. I watched a couple of clips at halftime. I tried to clean it up at the half for them to try to help them, get a little bit more clarity on it. We had a chance to talk about it as a group, which I think was good. But I told them at halftime, I said, I did not do a good enough job creating enough clarity. That's what it was. It wasn't like, well, all of a sudden we came out there and like we were surprised. There was nothing we were surprised about. They tried to put different personnel for us in actions, which I felt like would come. And that's why I think at shoot around, we tried to cover that stuff. And, like we're all, part of it. I mean, I'm just talking about myself for now. So it's not anything really to read in. It's just how I view it.
Just to piggyback on that, though, if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you look at it more as this is an isolated game rather than something that where you guys are right now. Being down 37 points tonight, 4 straight losses, and what you guys have done since the All-Star break.
So if you can back up for the question, Darnell, I don't know maybe what you're asking.
That the tonight's
definitely
and more than just lumped into where you guys are as a team right now.
No, I mean, we have not played well. I think you always try to figure out when you go back and watch film areas that, we can get better in, or myself personally can get better in as a coach. And I think you also look at, ways you can help the players get better, as, in terms of their job and their responsibility and their role. So it's a collective thing, so, again, I think that, I always feel like when you play the game with like a really, really good spirit, I feel like the game kind of rewards, the really good spirit. And I think for us at times, we've gotten deflated, where teams have gotten off to a good start. So we haven't shot the ball particularly well. And, we're going to have to kind of work through some of those situations. I am not at all saying today's a one-off. When you guys asked me what happened in that first half, I'm telling you what I think happened. Now I haven't watched 1 second of tape other than a few clips to half. That's just my thought initially, walking in here.
The breakdowns that we saw, the obvious ones, the open driving lanes for dunks. I mean, is that the communication component? How do you explain that?
That's like I said, there definitely clearly were some plays that there was just a total lack of communication, that had nothing to do with the scheme or anything else. there were situations and screening actions on some slip out things that we had talked about beforehand that I thought we got hurt on, that I felt like I didn't do a good enough job creating clarity for him. Now, with that being said, were there some of those plays you're talking about, like runouts and straight line drives? Yeah. And no pull over. Yeah. Those are things we should be able to handle better.
Seems like, some play happens, maybe it's a defensive miscue or somebody hits a three and then there's another one. And all of a sudden it's like snowballed into an 8 or 10-0 run or something like that. And it seems like it's very hard for you guys to shut off those types of runs. Why do you think that is? And like, is there something as a group they can do to like break out of those situations?
I think one of the things, that happens, in adversity or difficult situations is you get a number of things happen. I think you get finger pointing. I think you get blaming. You get disconnection. You get lack of communication. We have too much lack of communication. I think guys get very, very introspective and thinking about what they've got to do instead of figuring out what we have to do to solve it. I think we've got to get better with our communication, on the court when those things happen. I think guys try, but I think in the moment when those, like the things our talk on the court has got to be better than it is. And I think that sometimes some of those things that Donovan was talking about, like those blown coverages, there's just not enough communication that needs to be better. I think the more you communicate, the more you solve problems. And a lot of times in the game, you have to solve the problem in the game. It's great to come over in a timeout when they've gone on an 8-0 run and I've called timeout and they're talking about, they need to be talking about it in the moment of when it happens. We've got to be better there.
It sounds like you almost would prefer more finger pointing, quote unquote.
I'm sorry.
It almost sounds like you'd prefer more, quote unquote, finger pointing, like directness in terms of how guys are communicating. Is that what you're saying? But
No,
versus just
it's
not communicating enough.
No, I'm not saying like direct, but like there's screening actions happening. Things are happening. Things are going on in the game very, very quickly. Screaming to a guy, yelling to a guy, communicating to a guy to give him a heads up of what's happening or what he's getting ready to do, is like I'm not going to say this, but like there was a play in the second half. It was like, hey, it's not a coverage. That's not a coverage. Okay. So like, there's just some things there where I think you can fix things instead of trying to fix them in a timeout at the half. We got to be able to fix them in the game on the court, in between the lines. It's not the guy's finger pointing. It's more the helping. It's the communication of helping, where the help is coming from, what's happening in pick and roll coverage. What's the coverage? Tonight there was slip outs. We knew they were going to slip out. I didn't think, I thought our communication could have been better. Some of that stuff, like I said, it's on me. I got to be better. But the communication by them has got to be better to fix and solve problems. It's not so much finger pointing of like, hey, this just happened. This is your fault. You need to do this. It's not that at all. You can do that during a timeout, but in the game, you got to be able to communicate. It's like sometimes like we come down, the court and no one says anything like offensively, like that's not a play, like you got to verbalize. And I think that's an area we can get better at is the verbal part on both ends of the floor in terms of trying to talk a little bit more.
Do you feel like you were better at that early on in the season and now you kind of lost it, or?
No, I listen, I think that like this is just how I view it. And if you guys go back and listen to the things that I said, we were on a 9-game winning streak. And I said, our defense is going the wrong way. And I basically said, I'm not trying to be negative. But all of a sudden, when you end up going, the month of April, Miami, Milwaukee, Boston, and your schedule gets set up and then it's Phoenix, Golden State, and you get all these teams in a row. It shines a light on areas that I saw all the way back in December. It's like, I'm not like surprised. It's just, but what happens is all of a sudden, you play Golden State on the road in December without Vuce, whenever it was, and you get blown out in the game. And then all of a sudden you go play the Lakers and the Clippers without some guys, and you get a couple wins. And then Denver's doesn't have Jokic, and we get that win. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, hey, it was whatever it was, 3-3 or 3-2 road trip. Sometimes the schedule way it plays out, but when you pile up games against elite teams, the way we've had them piled up, you see spots of it in November, in December, in January. but like, you don't see that necessarily the way it is. So, Boston has played as well as anybody. Milwaukee's the defending NBA championships, and Miami's in first place. Those are 3 games right in a row. It wasn't like, hey, we got Miami and then a couple teams over here, and then we got this team. So you win 3 or 4 in a row, then you lose to them. Then you come back and win 3 or 4 more. Like that's just the way the schedule folded out. But like I've been talking about this for a while. It's just that a lot of it has gotten exposed. And I've said this before. I think winning a lot of times, blinds you in a lot of ways. And I've always said this, like, I think what we've gone through is really, really, we got good guys in the locker room. We got great guys in the locker room that want to fix it. But like, I keep saying this, you have to deal with this and confront it and get better at it, with what we're dealing with. So it's more the schedule sometimes puts you in a situation where, hey, they won 9 in a row. They're really, really hot. And listen, it's hard to win a game in this league. So I'm not diminishing any of the wins that our team and these guys have done. They've worked really hard for every one of them. But sometimes the schedule gets set up for you in different ways. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Accurate, detailed rundown of the problems, but the early timeout, 95 seconds in, what did you see that led to that?
That was me trying to create some more clarity very early in the game, of what I didn't think we had clarity on, and I don't think that timeout, in my opinion, solved it, but that's what the timeout was for. I saw it happen twice in a row. And I didn't think that based on what we had talked about at shoot around, it was done correctly, tried to get it done. There was still, some breakdowns, but like I said, that I've got to be better helping them in those situations. But the timeout was more based on what I had mentioned on some of the coverages. Yes. Yes. You're welcome. All right, guys. Thank you. Yep. Thank you.